With every passing day, Nigeria's main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, continues to lurch from one crisis to another. On Tuesday, it was uncertain as to who was in charge of the PDP, as two deputy national chairmen laid claims to have taken over as acting national chairman of the party. Their actions followed an order by Rivers High Court on Monday restraining Uche Secondus from parading himself as the national chairman of the PDP. This led to all-round confusion at the party secretariat on Tuesday and split the National Working Committee of the PDP into two factions, revolving around the two acting chairmen. Deputy National Chairman South, Mr. Yemi Akinwonmi, announced that he had taken over as acting chairman, citing Section 35, subsection B of the PDP Constitution. According to the section, the Deputy National Chairman South is empowered to act as national chairman in the chairman's absence because the chairman is from the southern zone. But Deputy National Chairman North, Senator Suleiman Nazif, objected, saying he was the acting chairman because Akinwonmi was incapacitated. After presiding over an NWC meeting, Nazif summoned a meeting of the National Executive Committee for next week. Arise correspondent Georgina Ndukwe Ezenyenka reports.
The emergence of a court order on Monday night suspending Uche Secondus as national chairman and preventing him from claiming the position or calling any meeting. There seems to have been a power vacuum in the party. After it became clear that the court order is genuine, two deputy national officers went ahead to declare themselves as acting national chairman. While Yemi Akinwonmi, the deputy national chairman South, says he is the rightful person to take over from Secondus based on precedents of coming from the same zone. He issued a statement from home, including a video clip of his proclamation saying he is unable to be at a scheduled National Working Committee meeting at the Secretariat in Abuja due to ill health.
After due consultation and in the exercise of said power, hereby deeming fit and proper to postpone the National Working Committee meeting earlier scheduled for today till further notice to allow broader consultation in overall interest of our party.
But the Deputy National Chairman North, Suleiman Nazif, would have none of that. He declared himself as acting national chairman and went ahead with the meeting, saying Akinwonmi had been absent from previous NWC meetings in the past 10 months.
In the absence of the national chairman, the deputy national chairman from the region, part of the country, where the national chairman originates from, the other national chairman shall act as chairman without prejudice to Section 47(6) of the Constitution. And in that regard, I have taken over as spelled out by the Constitution in the absence of all other chairmen.
The PDP National Working Committee is made up of 19 members, but only 8 members were present at this meeting. The National Vice Chairman, South, explains.
Is sitting there, the National Secretary of the party. If there is any cancellation, it's not by the Publicity Secretary. He is the one that will issue notice to all members that the meeting earlier scheduled to hold at 2 o'clock has been postponed. We have not such a message from the National Secretary. So to that extent, the man cannot, the Deputy National Chairman South cannot sit in the comfort of his house to call off a meeting that has been duly summoned by the Secretary on instruction arising from the last meeting of the National Working Committee.
The Nazif-led group has now called for an emergency meeting of the party executive on Friday, August 27th to decide the next line of action, while the Akinwonmi group insists they are in charge. All eyes are now on the court case that will finally determine the fate of Uche Secondus. Georgina Ndukwe, Arise News.
Now joining us from the United States to discuss the worsening leadership tussle that is threatening to upend the PDP before the 2023 elections is Osita Chidoka, a member of the PDP and former Minister of Aviation. Good morning, Osita, and welcome to the program.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Ruben.
Yeah, good morning. And it's good to see you. 50 looks good on you. Congratulations. I missed the birthday party. Congrats.
I must say, I heard you defending me from the bag of small boy.
Anyway, quickly, let's go to business. What's going on in the People's Democratic Party? We now have two factions. the Senator Nazif faction, which conducted an NWC meeting yesterday with just 8 members. And then you have the other faction led by Yemi Akinwonmi, who is quoting the party constitution to say that what the party constitution says clearly is that in the absence of the chairman, the person that will take over must come from the same region or zone, region or zone, as the same chairman that is no longer there. Well, in this case, Prince Uche Secondus has been suspended from office with the force of a court ruling in Port Harcourt. So what exactly should be the right thing?
Okay, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. I think that there are no 2 factions in the PDP. To call them 2 factions is a bit of a stretch. There are contending forces within the NWC, and the arguments are, and I will take the arguments from where it is now. The party and the stakeholders met and agreed that there will be a Congress, a national convention by end of October. And at one of the meetings of the NWC, from what I heard, the proposal of the National Organizing Secretary suggests that going by the timelines of the 21 days notice to INEC, of the some congresses that needs to be concluded, that the program of the convention will be sometime in November and not end of October. Also, Anambra elections is on November 6th. And I hear that didn't go down well with another section of the NWC, who had at the meeting advised that they go into they bring this up with the stakeholders and agree on the shift in date. So I think that shift in date is the issue before them. And I think that the PDP has the internal mechanism and the internal capacity to overcome this challenge. It's just going to be, it's not a case of 2 factions ideologically opposed to each other. It's a case of an agreement reached at the stakeholders meeting and a variation to that agreement based on the clear, reasonable, in my view, timelines to achieving that objective. Normally, my advice would have been that the NWC will have been given a mandate to conduct it within a reasonable time, not extending beyond their tenure. Actually ends in December. So there's even no issue of a sit-tight process here. It's just a matter of the mechanisms. So I don't think there are factions. I think that the National Vice Chairman South, as he came up, is his remit to say what he's saying by the constitution of the PDP. He should act in the absence of the national chairman.
Right, so that's a rather conciliatory perspective that you have there. So my next question for you is, who now is the acting national chairman of the PDP? Because we have 2 contenders. We have Mr. Akinwonmi, who's relying on Section 45, subsection 2, and we also have Senator Nazif claiming Mr. Akinwonmi is incapacitated, sort of preempting the person who is incapacitated, who has not said that he is. Somebody else has declared him incapacitated. So where does the party stand on this issue?
Well, I think the constitution of the party is the ground norm. So we are going to go by the constitution of the party. But, you know, for me, the question goes beyond the issue of who is the chairman or not, because the constitution settles that. The vice chairman from the zone of the chairman will take over. And since Deputy Chairman South has turned up, the views of the national chairman, Deputy National Chairman North, are only views. Those are not facts from any medical doctor or any board of inquiry or any such thing. So those are his views. But I believe that they can resolve that by going strictly by the constitution of the party, and then also agreeing on a date that is agreed by the stakeholders. So I know the governors are meeting. I know the other stakeholders are meeting. But like I said, the issue goes beyond this issue. The matter before the PDP, and as you can see in the APC, is a problem that I think we need to talk about in Nigeria. The crisis of the political parties itself. The political parties have not made progress in the 21 years of our democracy. The political parties have not been at the vanguard of democratic behavior in our 21 years. One would have thought that by now, many issues, conventions, behaviors, many processes will have become almost conventional with the political parties. But what we see every time is that the parties have been falling back to not obeying their own constitution. The parties have fallen back to using the courts to resolve their internal problems. Political parties are supposed to be it's supposed to be a platform for people to be able to discuss and resolve issues. The fact that we are not able to do it inside the PDP without attracting media attention is a real minus to us as a political party. And I think the same goes for the APC. So I think that what is an issue here is whether the political parties that are in the vanguard of our democratic experience have developed the institution, the processes, and the capacity to resolve its own internal crisis, more so resolving the crisis of the nation when they win the power. So you can see that it appears to be a disconnect between the political parties and those elected under the banner of the political party. There seems to be no integration. The party seems to become active every time we're heading towards an election. And this is 2021 going to 22. The conventions for presidential elections are going to come up in 2022. And all of a sudden, all the parties are facing this internal crisis, which you can see is a product of the upcoming election, meaning that all the period before any major election, nobody seems to be interested in the affairs of the political parties. And that's very sad for Nigeria's democracy. It's one of the stumbling obstacles to deepening democracy in Nigeria, the role of the political parties.
So I'd like to ask you, why is the PDP so fragile that if one person says, I don't want the national chairman, he's as good as gone? Because when all of this started, one person was steeped, a certain governor that said he didn't want the national chairman. Then there was a peace parley, but that didn't work. In the end, the national chairman is gone. And what's the fate of Uche Secondus that's still trying to go to a court? He sent his lawyer to a court in Port Harcourt to try to vacate that order that stops him from parading himself as the governor. I mean, as the chairman of the party. You're going to answer this after the quick commercial break. All right, welcome back. We still have Osita Chidoka, a member of the PDP and former Minister of Aviation of this country. So I said earlier before we went to the break, why is the PDP so fragile that once one person says, I don't want the national chairman, he's as good as gone. And a lot of people said that's not going to work, but that's the case now. It's because a certain person said, I don't want Uche Secondus. That's why he's gone. And secondly, was the question I asked about the fate of Uche Secondus. So he sent his lawyers out to Port Harcourt. They're trying to vacate that court order that says he shouldn't parade himself as the chairman of the party.
So let me take the first question. And I want to say that there is no, I don't see that as fragility of the PDP. Here you're talking about Governor Wike, who has been upfront about his position on the Uche Secondus-led National Working Committee. First, I want to avert your mind to history. So the crisis between governors and president and the national chairman of the party has been recurring in PDP and even in APC. So if you remember when former Governor Nwodo was chairman of PDP, it was a crisis between him and Sullivan Chime, who was the governor of Enugu State, that led to an order that removed Governor Nwodo at the point of a national convention as chairman of the party. So whenever a governor comes, whenever a chairman comes from a state, the state governor becomes an influential person in determining that chairman's success or failure at the national. The reason is that there is no party at the national, really. Everybody belongs to party at the ward level. So you can only join PDP at the ward level. Now, the governors are in control of the party at the ward and local government. So while you are busy in Abuja as chairman, you can be removed as a member of PDP from your ward. So this is why the national chairman, most governors don't even want a national chairman in their state at most times. If you remember Obasanjo and Audu Obe in their crisis in PDP, it just took the president going to the house of Chairman Audu Obe and getting him to resign. So that has been the dynamic of this third republic. Of course, in APC, you saw Governor Shomole and former Governor Shomole and Governor Baseki battling about who will control the party. And you could see that as national chairman, he frustrated Obaseki from, getting the party ticket. But that process consumed him because all the governors rallied behind Obaseki. You can go back as far back as the First Republic to think about the struggle for the control of party structure. So whether it is Akintola and Awolowo, there's always been this dynamic of who controls the party structure. Most times, the governor at home, the person who is governing the state, has tremendous capacity to make life difficult for the person at the national office. So that is what is happening in PDP. In the case of fragility, in the case of how the dynamic of the party, which is what we need to begin to look into, the ability of PDP and the APC, the political parties, to become democratic down to the ward level, so that they are not under the influence of the person who is controlling the party at the local base. So, but as it is today, it is a difficult battle to win a battle against your governor in any political party. It always consumes the governors. It always consumes the national officer, because the national officers come from the states. It happens to House of Rep members, it happens to senators. If you remember the case of Governor Egu and Senator Anyim, Governor Egu said he's not going back, and he didn't go back. He's Senate president. The same thing happened with Governor Chimaroke and Senator Nnamani, Ken Nnamani. He said Nnamani is not going back to the Senate, and he didn't come back to the Senate. So it is that internal democracy at the state level that will need to be tweaked to resolve that issue. But that dynamic will remain so long as governors remain in control of the party and the funders of the party at the local levels. At the case of the fate of Uche Secondus, my expectation is that the court will reverse itself, or the appeal court will have to speak on it. It will be a moot point if it drags, but I believe that the matter in the legal circumstances, I do not know how a court will be granting these orders ex parte, but I believe that will be for the judiciary to resolve. And I believe that Uche Secondus should do everything to resolve that in the judicial, through a judicial process.
Okay, Osita, we have had the view expressed that all of these crises in both the APC and the PDP is about 2023. The permutations, where should the next chairman come from? Where should the next presidential candidate come from? How is that true? How is it a big issue within the PDP particularly? And what do you think we need to do to strengthen the political party system in the country generally, so that these parties, as you pointed out earlier, are not just mere vehicles, that special purpose vehicles that start moving when a major election is around the corner?
Well, I think the permutations for 2023 is driving some of these crises in the parties. The permutations about where the president will come from, the chairman will come from, those are some of the issues. But I think that I belong to that group of people in the political parties who are asking for the modernization of the political parties. Our political parties are not modern institutions. Our political parties should be contributing to the employment crisis in Nigeria by the sheer nature of politics, being able to recruit people at all levels for different elections, being able to feel the pulse of the people. So let me say this. If you look at the crisis of where the government, the chairman will come from and where the president will come from, ordinarily, most political parties around the world will be relying on opinion polls, will be relying on testing the pulse of their members to see what combination will work. So if you look at advanced democracies like the US, you will see them at every point in time looking at, the US, the Democratic Party knew that if they chose Bernie Sanders as their candidate, they were done for. They wouldn't win a general election. They knew that they needed somebody in the moderate hue to win an election. So political parties are in the business of winning an election, but I do not see the parties having the infrastructure to deliver elections, minus the use of government infrastructure, use of government funds, and use of the capacity of the state to beat people into an election. What is really lacking is that capability to use the party as an institution with memory, as beyond an electoral vehicle, like you called it, an SPV, beyond a special purpose vehicle, a party that has the network and the ability to gauge the pulse of the nation, to use modern tools to decide how the party will go. The people will be guided by evidence. Of course, if you look at the data that is in Nigeria today, you will see that the political parties are not making use of any data. What they are relying on is finding that candidate that either has the money or whom the people that have the money will support, or that candidate that represents the sentiments of a large voting bloc. So, which is fair at the beginning of our democracy. But today, we've gone beyond that. So those struggling for who will be the chairman of PDP and who will be the presidential candidate, what they are missing is that the advantage that the PDP or the APC has, which is the advantage of a large network, which is the advantage of presence in the 120,000 polling units in Nigeria, that advantage is no more relevant today. That advantage can be overcome by any party with funding and with determination, because you can set it up today using technological tools that will make it easy for you to set up in all the polling units in Nigeria. So that advantage is no more just a mere advantage because you are PDP. So to determine who will be chairman, to determine who will be presidential candidate, guided by personal interest or group interest inside the political party, is going to be a perennial struggle. But it is not going to solve the problem of the fundamental weakness of the party. So to stop the party from being a special purpose vehicle, it is important that those who are governors today, who are executives in the party, just take a look back the last 20 years. If you go back to 1999 to 2007, if you list out the names of the governors who were governors in 1999 to 2007, they're nowhere to be found today. Some of them can't even win an election to go to House of Reps if they were to contest today. And this is primarily because the party infrastructure is comatose, it is weak, it doesn't allow for internal contest. If the internal contest mechanism was good, I don't think anybody will be fighting about who is chairman or who will oversee a convention, who will oversee a congress. We saw Zuma lose out in a contest about who will replace him as chairman of ANC. We saw Thabo Mbeki lose out to Zuma when the Congress went to Polokwane for their Congress in ANC. It doesn't matter who the chairman is. The people will vote for who they want to be the leader of their party. So that mechanism, that process that President Jonathan brought in using, in modernizing INEC, there is need now to modernize the political parties to stop this perennial struggle for the, so quote and unquote, the structure of the party. And I think that structure of the party is comatose, is weak, and needs to be rejigged very urgently to imbibe the technology, to imbibe the demography that will actually vote for the elections. The people that voted in 1999 are no more relevant in the elections of today. The bulk of those that will determine the election, like what happened in Zambia, are between the ages of 18 and 30. So we need to communicate with them in a different manner, in a different voice. And that is the problem. People are still living in 1999. We need to come to 2021. Times have changed. The electoral process has improved. The voting, INEC is able to upload results from all polling units, and yet the parties do not even have the infrastructure to upload their own results from the polling units. So these are the issues that I thought would be confronting the political parties and not who becomes the chairman. But whoever becomes the chairman, whoever becomes the presidential candidate, without this infrastructure for delivering the election, I don't believe that any political party will win that election easily, particularly PDP as an opposition party in 2023. The issue of who becomes chairman or who is the candidate to be a moot point.
Well, anachronistic thinking really is the bane of our existence in Nigeria in so many ways. You're spot on with that observation. But you made a reference earlier, and I wanted to ask you, do you see a practical route back to the chairmanship for Uche Secondus? Because you rightly said, what has happened here is there's been an interim ruling. There hasn't been a judgment on the substantive issue. Bearing in mind that the issue is that he's accused of reneging on an agreement with the BOT, where him and the NWC were to step down before the convention. And you also have had that mass resignation of several deputies in the NWC.
Well, the deputies who resigned have come back to say that they only served the notice of resignation. So they are saying they did not resign and they are still in the party. Those who threatened to resign did not resign. If there was a break in conversation about the agreement for the Congress, the convention in October, I think the best thing would have been to go back to that body where that decision was taken, the governors and co. They can convene over Zoom to listen to the chairman, look at the timetable, and agree on the way forward. So I think that the court order, like you said, will be vacated, but it depends on the timing. The idea is that maybe it will take about 20 days to do that, and that will bring the chairman more and more closer to the date for a convention. But I think that these are, little dynamics that will not resolve the fundamental issue. It's like anybody who is going to become president of Nigeria. The fundamental issues before us cannot be resolved by just mere ascension to power. There must be a clear plan, a roadmap to bring the party to avert the situation that led to this crisis. And that situation has been that the NWC, the accusations against the NWC by Governor Wike are known to every Nigerian. The defense of the NWC, they have made some of defenses to those accusations, but those accusations are fundamental. The same accusations are on in APC. The same accusations are on in even the small parties around. So I think that Uche Secondus has a clear pathway to the remaining chairman if he goes through the legal process and obtains the court decision. But that is not going to be the solution to the problem. The solution is to go back to the party organs that took the decision for the convention, convince them about the roadmap to the convention, share with them that information as he was mandated to do by the NWC. If he shares that information with them and they agree with the logic, the timing to INEC, the conduct of the various congresses, if those are not acceptable to them, then they can stick to the October date. And in any event, his date ends in December. So either way, we just have to work with him towards the termination of his time as chairman of the PDP.
Well, thank you very much, Osita Chidoka, for joining us on the morning show. Thank you very much indeed.